There in Cebu.
Very hot, yes, I know.
Mainit din po dito sa summer, Father.
Summer, okay. No rains yet, huh? Because yesterday it also rained here in Quezon City. Okay, one thing that I'd like to mention is this matter of confidentiality, no? According to canon law, the opinion of the spiritual director may never be sought, no? Regarding the admission of students to holy orders or from their dismissal from the seminary. Because precisely that is the way for seminarians and our sisters to have a complete trust in their spiritual director in such a way that they're confident that whatever they divulge in spiritual direction will not be used to make a decision against them. So therefore, in practice, in seminaries, when seminarians are evaluated, if there is a formator who is spiritual director of a seminarian, he usually steps out of the room so that his opinion may not be sought in any way for the evaluation of the seminarians and of course of the sisters also. So that's one aspect, no? But the other aspect is this. In some cases, some spiritual directors will say, can I request the permission of my spiritual directee to share information to the provincial, for example, or to the rector of the seminary? That is not allowed. You cannot do that. It is a way of skirting the law. But it also it can be detrimental to the integrity of spiritual direction. Why? For example, it might not happen in all cases, but it might happen in some. If I, the seminarian, I know that my spiritual director can give information to the rector or to the bishop, then I will put up my very best self. I will not be transparent. I only share the good things about me. Anyway, my spiritual director will talk about me before the rector. So in a sense, of course, it's detrimental. You don't encourage openness. Be able to converse also with the seminarian in the external forum. No? Whenever the rector every year, for example, in San Jose Seminary, in any other seminary, the rector sees the seminarian individually for what we call individual colloquium. No? Whenever the rector does that, he's not doing spiritual direction. That's not spiritual direction. It is what we call a governance matter. No? It's in other words, in simpler words, it's kamustahan in relation to your life of formation in the seminary. Now, that's the reason why the role of the rector is very crucial. Because without undergoing spiritual direction, how do you draw the seminarian out of himself to be able to open up to you? No? So that you will also have a good idea how is the vocation of this seminarian. So therefore, the personality of rectors, it's important. The personality should be in such a way that the seminarians will be able to open themselves up voluntarily, no? Voluntarily, and in a way that is transparent. Because it's also possible that the seminarians will open themselves up to you, but with lack of sincerity. With a lack of sincerity. Let me share with you something that is, I think, true. But seminarians are not necessarily the most virtuous of peoples. There are a lot of seminarians who are quite manipulative also. No? There's some seminarians who, they're not evil. They're not really evil, But there are seminarians who are not sincere, actually. I'm not saying all. I'm just stating a fact. No, because many seminarians are also good people, trying their best to be good persons, trying their best to undergo formation, to be of greater service to God. But we also we should have the capacity to read personalities also. We cannot make judgments on people, but at the same time, as formators, we should have a sense of the person of this seminarian or of this sister. It's like marunong tayong bumasa, di ba? Dapat marunong tayong bumasa. We should be able to read, in quotation marks, personalities. But that's also quite crucial, no? Because we cannot always rely on our judgments. Our judgments might be actually wrong, no? In Tagalog, yung ating parang parang inaamoy mo, no? Inaamoy mo ano ba tong taong to. You're trying to size up a person. So that requires a good deal of insight also sa atin, in ourselves, no? We should not only just be seeing black or white, no? Because the world is not black and white. The world is colored. If you look around you, everything is colored. No? There's no black and white. If you only see black and white around you, there's something wrong with your eyesight. No? So again, that's it. No? To be a formator is quite challenging also. But as a formator, it's not also naman possible na we will just be like buddy-buddy of our sisters. Parang magkaibigan lang kayo, barkada lang kayo. Or you are a seminary formator like Father Lawrence, hindi rin naman pwede yung parang friends lang kayo, no? Ganyan, parang equal lang kayo in a sense, no? Buddy-buddy. We should have a kind of a level of authority in a good sense. No, I'm not saying authority in a bad sense. They should realize that we are also authorities, in quotation marks, who are here to help them, to guide them in their formation. You might have questions or insights about this aspect, no? This aspect of trying to guide the seminarians or your sisters to allow themselves to be guided. And part of allowing themselves to be guided is the process of opening themselves up, in a sense, to be vulnerable, because they will gradually, hopefully, submit themselves to our guidance. Mga sisters, some of you might have already have a number of years in formation. How is it like trying to talk heart to heart with our formans, those under formation? Si Father Lawrence, bagong-bago pa, bagong ordained pa to eh, si Father Lawrence. But, you know, even if Father Lawrence is still young, we all have our experience of formation. All of us, no? And we also have a good idea of, on the other side, no? If we recall our formation, this model of a formator that I can emulate. No? Something like that, no? Like I remember our novice master, when we were novices, and he was novice master for about even 20 years. So, yeah, he was somebody who one could easily open up to. No? For various reasons, his personality, but also part of that easiness for not just me, but for us to open ourselves to him, are the formation that we underwent, no? The talks that we underwent, the spiritual talks that we underwent about the importance of opening up to formators. Yeah, for you, what are your opinion? What are the qualities that would be useful for us to be able to draw our persons' information out of themselves to open up for guidance? What might be the the setup or the environment or even the preparations necessary for that to happen? Wala. Mahirap. Kakuko, yeah. What are your, please, if you can, so that we can hear you also, so that you can be seen also. So what would be needed for this openness between formator and formants to happen?
Further, as for my experience, I think a formator should be trustworthy in terms of there are some formators. If you look at the big percentage of the formats, we come from the poor families with family issues. And sometimes you would like to have someone, even to the formator, who can listen to you. So for me, formator should be someone who keeps the secret. Yeah, for instance, this is according to me. I experienced once, I shared with formator about a very sensitive case that was undergoing in my family. But after 2 days, I had it with another brother. So since that time, I kept distance, and I decided it's better I remain with my problems than sharing with them, and then they will be shared. So for me, a formator should be trustworthy and someone who can keep the secret of the formats. And this makes the formats to be open, because they know whatever they share with the formator, they will be listened with a father heart, someone with a father figure, and with a lot of concern not to expose you.
Yes, thank you, thank you. Wow, that's quite important. No, that sense of being trustworthy. In one important aspect of trustworthiness is to be able to have the capacity to keep the secret, no, or to keep what we call confidentiality, no, because that is something that's quite sacred, no. Whatever is opened up to us, no, in whether it be in spiritual direction or in individual consultation with you as the formator, it is something that is sacred. It is something that is really sacred. It is important, as also mentioned by Kakuku, that the formator, tayo, should have an idea of the background of each seminarian, of each sister. No? And for us to be able, for the foreman, the sister or the brother, to feel that we are one with them. No, we are not making judgments on them. That we respect them as formators. Other qualities and kind of situations that might help promote such openness. Yes, Father Lawrence, please.
Father, this is sharing from experience. I think formators should know how to ask the right questions. Although we have been used to doing the spiritual direction, but then sometimes the helping side doesn't happen because many guides would always try to spiritualize something, or maybe the discernment become we fast track the discernment going
Yes.
towards the reception of, say for example, ordination already, priesthood already, whereas there's something that is happening with the seminarian. So I mean, asking the right questions is one big thing. This is what we are trying to do, especially in the seminaries. That's why the skill of the formator, especially in spiritual direction, should always be addressed. Before you do it, I think a short training would be really helpful, so that the right questions, the right directions may be given. Sometimes
Yes.
seminaries do not come to you just to let you know that there is a problem. No, there are many aspects of spiritual direction that I think should really be understood before you go through it. So yeah, that is one thing, Father.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that. No, that's very, very important. The art of asking questions. Remember, the purpose of spiritual direction really precisely is that it's in that word, direction of one's spiritual life. No, the focus of spiritual direction really is to help the seminarian or the sister cultivate that personal relationship with God in Jesus Christ. No, to be able to bring the foreman, the brother or the sister, into a kind of a close contact with the Lord Jesus. And if they actually are having already this experience of a relationship with Jesus, there's a good deal of clarification that also needs to be done. No? Because not everything is we do not, even we ourselves, so even we ourselves who might already have this relationship with the Lord, we still need to clarify certain things, no, within us, so that hopefully will be the assistance to be provided by the spiritual director. Now, in your program, the diploma in integral vocational accompaniment, you have a course, no, on discernment and spiritual direction. I don't know if some of you have taken that course with Father Joe Kilong Kilong. Hopefully, there will be some kind of some form of training there in regard to what discernment is, but also pertaining to spiritual direction. And not only that, one of your courses is the anthropology of the Christian vocation with Father Jing Portia. Now that course is more I would say psycho-spiritual component of this diploma program. Part of that course with Father Jing. Father Jing is a psychologist. He graduated from the Gregorian University in Rome. No, he has a licentiate in psychology. As far as I know, that's why he admits only 12 students in the class. No, because each one of you will undergo some kind of a processing of your own vocational journey, whether you are a priest, a religious, or a lay person. No? So there will be a good deal of guidance also that will be done with you. So Father Jing will kind of journey with you in the course. There you will hopefully also learn to ask the right questions. You know, by kind of modeling with Father Jing. Okay, that's just information for you. Okay, let's continue. This what we call in canon law the moderator or supervisor of spiritual life. These are the individual spiritual directors. This is not the head. There might be many of them in attached or in connection with a formation house of sisters or priests, seminarians. Okay, so we go to Canon 244. The general goal of formation, while these canons pertain to diocesan clergy, diocesan seminarians to become clerics, this applies also to all of us religious, no? Whether you are a male religious or a female religious under formation. So first, to simultaneously, sabay-sabay, it says simultaneously. This is not done one after another, but this happens all together. Develop the requisite human maturity. Yung pagkatao lang natin are being persons. So, I dare say that the spiritual part need not be considered even yet at this time. But it's just about us being humans, no? Our own personalities as human beings, our own history as persons, how we develop from childhood to our present state, no, as adults. What was that journey like living with family? What were the wounds that we have experienced as persons, no? Each one in our own developmental growth. We have had all sorts of experiences, both positive and negative. It's just unfortunate that a good number of our negative experiences kind of influence the way we develop and the way we become as persons today. So in our formation, we will observe among our seminarians or sisters different kinds of personalities. No, you have seminarians or sisters who are perfect, not really perfect, but okay, almost 100%. He has or she has all the nice qualities of a person. But in some, there seems to be some questions that arise in our minds. No, why is this person? He or she seems so shy in the presence of the formator. Why does he try or she tries to avoid the authorities almost all the time? When you're walking along the corridor, then he will take another path just to avoid you. Well, those have certain connections also with the way they grew up, with the way they were formed, or even by the negative experiences that they might have had in relation to authority. So all these development of the human person is part of the objective of formation. Of course, to acquire the spirit of the gospel and developing a close relationship with Christ who calls us. Now, in relation to what we call the human maturity, here psychological consultation becomes very important. This does not just pertain to application to formation, no? Application to enter. For example, the novitiate. This also involves some guidance that can happen while the person is under formation in the seminary. Yeah? Now again, people have in seminaries, formation houses have different available resources. No? So if a seminarian needs some counseling, then the person can be able to have access to psychological consultation. Okay? So, but the seminarian needs to be open to undergo assessment and guidance as with a counselor. Of course, in some cases, the fact of seeing a counselor is identified, you have a problem. No, you have a problem. But as long as it's a problem that can be handled, yes, let us do it. No, but what we want to avoid is if a seminarian or a religious sister would need to undergo therapy. That's different. Therapy is different. No, if you have kind of to admit a sister or a seminarian to formation and you realize this person needs therapy, it would be better not to accept na lang. Because a person who needed to undergo therapy has deeply set psychological issues. Maybe the formation house is not the place for him or her. No? So when, for example, in whether here in the Society of Jesus or in San Jose Seminary, we receive applications, they undergo psychological assessment, and the provincial and the rector of the seminary is able to have a report prepared by the psychologist. Now, reports would range from a generally healthy personality we have here. Then there are no major psychological issues. Nothing major, but there might be minor. Now, there might be some reports prepared by the psychologist that states that this person needs some work to do in certain areas of his or her personality. Okay? But there is also a report that comes out which says this person has deeply set psychological issues and problems. So it would be best not to accept this category. You may accept people who you feel things can be managed by some counseling and some guidance, but not anymore yung therapy. Okay? So for us, especially religious congregations, for men and women, let not the lack of vocations kind of lead us to make a decision to admit even problematic men and women to our congregations. Let us not go into that. In Tagalog, we have a saying, no, kapit sa patalim. No? Wala nang pumapasok tanggapin na natin. Because that will not be, it will not be fair, both to our congregations and to the person himself or herself. Okay? It is not that the person is bad. No, it's not. It's just because the person might not be fit for our way of life. If you have questions, no, or ideas, just interrupt me if you have something to share. Okay. Now, according to the Ratio Fundamentalis, it is the guide for priestly formation. This is still the old guide, but I think it's also present in the new Ratio, the order for priestly formation. Here we have the wider context of discernment. No, the reason why we look at the human maturity of a person, the reason why we try to address some psychological issues of a person is discernment. No? If a person has so many issues and bothered by so many problems in his or her personality, how can the person discern well? No? We need a generally healthy individual psychologically in order that the person may discern really well God's call for him or for her. Because if there are deeply set issues, for example, the lack of experience of love in the family, no? It can be an issue for some people. Not everyone experiences that deep love in the family. If a person, for example, the kind of quotation marks love that he or she has experienced is a kind of a reward. I will reward you with love if you do something good. Sometimes parents do that. I will reward you if you get an A- in your courses. Each A- will be given a reward. And sometimes for young people, even children, that is how they experience love, which is very conditional. Mamahalin lamang ako kung mayroon akong maibibigay ayon sa kanyang kagustuhan. I will only be loved if I'm able to give something according to the standards of that person, of my mother or of my father. So a person might knock on our doors to enter our congregation with this lack of love, and hoping that in this congregation I will experience so much love. And what happens when she enters your congregation? What does she find? Is it love or whatever? I hope naman love. I hope love naman. No? But that's it. That's it. No? When a person has that issue inside, is there a proper discernment that is happening? Is the person's discernment really focused on my own desire to serve Jesus in the mission, in the ministry? Or I want to enter a religious life because I want to experience love? No, when we enter a religious congregation with that intention, I want to be loved, there's a problem. There's a problem there. We would like to see applicants to our congregations, people definitely who have experienced a good deal of love and love of their parents, of their relatives, and they could actually say they have experienced the love of God and they'd like to share that with others. That is very different from the other person that I was trying to share with you. Again, so therefore, we need discernment happens. Para ka nagtatanim ng halaman, no? If you're trying to plant something, the ground should be fertile. No? You have to have good soil. The soil should not have insects, bugs running around. Otherwise, if you plant something there, the plant will be eaten up by the bugs, by the ground bugs. So when we kind of nurture a vocation, the ground, the personality, more or less, should be balanced. No? Again, the other context, wider context of discernment is to sustain the candidate's maturation towards this call. Yeah, Father Lawrence, please.
Father, this is a question po. The
Yes.
situation in seminaries would always be like this. Well, we have the minor seminary, then we have the major seminary and the theology po. The problem is we tend to identify personality problems when it is already in the theological stage, which is already critical since we are talking already. I was struck by what you have said. But first and foremost, the major seminary we have here in the local, we are not yet that equipped with the persons or the experts that we can ask. And it had been the struggle of many major seminaries because there's always a problem when we recommend someone, then we discover the problems in the theology. And my question would be, what would be your advice, I think, or any insights regarding this matter?
Thank you, Father Lawrence. It's very, very important because, of course, I'm a religious, no, and I come from the context of admission to our novitiate. These are usually college graduates already, no, and so then it's in that context when these candidates are submitted to assessment, no, both spiritual assessment and also psychological assessment. So these are already people who are above 20, no? But in recent years, they're getting older. They're getting more. Sometimes the youngest is a candidate is already 25 or 26 or 27, no? So that's where I'm coming from. That's why I missed it. Your father, definitely for high school students, they're still developing, no? Try to imagine ourselves when we were in high school, no? We were still in the process of growth, no? There, I would say, adolescents have their own issues, no? But these issues, we should not make a good deal of judgment on the issues of these high school boys or girls, no, because they are still undergoing development. So can we make a psychological assessment of them? Probably not yet. Probably not yet. Probably we could still give advice sometimes, diba? There are some boys who are rough, they fight, they have an anger issue. But in many cases, it is transitory. No? They outgrow some of these problems that they experience. No? Now for college, I think Father, college is still very young, din eh? Well, I don't know, because before we entered college when we were 20 years old, no, or 21. But now, at what age now with K to 12? At what age do they enter college?
About 19, Father, 19.
Around 19 na, but third year na ako no, nung I was 19 years old. No? So around that time, no, 19, 18, they begin to enter college. Yeah. If they are in the seminary or senior high school or like that, when they enter the college seminary, I have to check this out, no? Because surely they can be assessed psychologically to a certain extent. But still, they're quite young still. 18, they're 18, you're still a teenager, di ba? 19, you're still a teenager. A lot more kind of elbow room can be given to these college students. So I understand that when you give recommendations, no, then sometimes their issues arise in theology na. By the time that they get to around 24, 25, 26 years old, I would say before like what age? Before 23, let's give a little more space to them. Like for example, Father Lawrence in San Jose Seminary, many of our seminarians are college seminary graduates. wala pang K to 12 before, no? They are very young, 20 years old, 21. But I was trying to tell them also, because I know, because I'm in the university here, no? And we also know college students at the same age. And these are also men. Sometimes the level of development seems to be very different. These guys who are outside in the university, they seem to be more mature than those who are graduates also in the college. These are, for example, our law students. Law students are college graduates, no? They already have bachelor's degree. Medical students also. They also have college degrees also already. And other master students. The seminarians who come to theology, they also have college degrees already. But it seems to me that some seminarians, not all, they're still like high school. And yet these graduate students, medical students, law students, they seem to be more mature. I don't know what's happening. It depends. No? It depends on what's happening in our seminaries. But so we have had these young graduates from the college seminaries entering theology. They all undergo the psychological exam. Many are admitted. In fact, a good number are admitted to the seminary. And then in the process, the personalities emerge. No? Even if we already gave them the personality test, Father. No? I would say just before SPFY is the spiritual pastoral year. That happens after second year. I would say to give chance to people to enter the theology, no, first year, because in the theology, it's very important for formators to have an actual experience of them rather than just relying on the psychological exams. Now, in these psychological exams, sometimes it's very clear this person has very serious psychological problems. It's not that they are crazy, no, we're not talking about crazy people. Some of the reports will say, as I mentioned, there are deep-set psychological problems in this person. These persons, we do not accept. But there are areas which we're not quite very sure about. My issues, but these issues can be handled. Now, by living personally with them, that's when we can kind of first guide. Number two, the real personalities emerge. Okay? Even if you might recall, we mentioned in canon law, those who enter theology, the major seminary should have very clear vocation already. But that's the ideal, no? That's the ideal. On the ground, in actual reality, that's not always the case. In some cases, when they enter theology, they're still not sure about themselves. And in many cases, there are a lot of issues that have to be addressed. But we should give them a chance. But by the time they enter pastoral year, there should be a greater stability now, no, of their personalities and of their vocation, in such a way that nobody enters the pastoral year after second year theology with very still serious psychological issues. So there. So it's possible that a recommendation of a college seminary formator might in the end, it might have been accurate at a particular time when you were with him. But persons grow and develop. When they go in another context, no, of formation, it's sometimes that the actual personality would emerge. And that's okay. That's okay. I don't make a judgment on formators if eventually the person they recommend was asked to leave the seminary. It's part of the whole process, no? Yeah, but also what we try to do is we take seriously also the information provided by seminary formators, because they are the ones who live with the seminarians. I think also, Father Lawrence, one important aspect, ito naman of theological formation, is to give the seminarians a good deal of freedom. Okay? In the first place, they are already graduates, no? They are college graduates already. They are adults, no? Because it's only in the context of relative freedom in the seminary structures when their personalities, the real personalities, will emerge. Because if you enter a theologate with a seminary that is very structured, that is so rigid or even strict, sometimes, not all the time, the personalities will not emerge. The personalities will emerge after ordination. And you don't want that to happen. We don't want that to happen. When the real personality will emerge only after ordination. And that will be a very sad event. For example, this is not secret, no, I will not mention the name, but a young priest from, well, remember that case in Tuguegarao, up north in Cagayan? And it was even in the news, the television news of the Philippines. This young priest, newly ordained, even and 1 year ordained, was caught with a girl, with with a minor even, with a minor. Do you remember that news? And that young priest was arrested for having sexual relations with a minor. Now what happened? 4 na taon sa theology. So the question that came to my mind is, did the personality of this person emerge during formation? Was this issue about sexuality even discussed with the spiritual director? Was it even, a matter of discussion or conversation with the seminary rector? Now, again, I don't want to blame any institution, but that is what happened. And there's another case again, this time in Pampanga. A young priest impregnated a girl 1 year or 2 years after ordination. What happened? Did the personality of this seminarian, this young priest, emerge while he was in theology? Was the context of seminary formation so strict and so rigid that they could not express themselves, that all they do was to hide within themselves? And so that when one gets ordained, oh, I'm totally free. I can now do anything I want. No, it's very sad, no? Again, I think that's what we need to do, no? It's not easy because, they make their own decisions anyway, no? They're mature, but those decisions led them to a very sorry situation. Okay. Medyo mabigat, ano? Mabigat. Yung usapan. Just shows that our work is really not easy. It can be very fulfilling, definitely. But it can also be kind of depressing. I was trying to, the one in Pampanga and the one in Tuguegarao, what might have been the sentiments of their formators when they learned about it, no? About that scandal. Okay, so tuloy na tayo. Let's continue. Interrelated means of formation. I just saw this picture online. This was some years ago. They're not Filipinos, but they're seminarians. I think they're Mexican seminarians. Do you see them clearly? Okay. Yeah, it seems that they look very healthy, no? These seminarians. How about your seminarians there, Father Lauren? Are they this healthy?
No, Father. Definitely not.
Mga payat pa yan siguro, mga college student, ano? They're college. So, but when they get to theology, nako, they might get beat. I don't know, ha? Theology is in Lucena, no? In Lucena.
Yes, Father.
Masarap bang pagkain doon?
Masarap food.
I hope so. Okay, importante din, ha? I forgot to mention, that the food in the seminary is also important, ha? And also in the convento, in your convent, sisters, no? Baka naman wala nang makain, mga madre, baka maghanap ng ibang makakainan. They might not have enough food. They might eat food elsewhere. No? Okay, so interrelated means of formation. Also, this thing about food, no? Because I think in all our communities, there will always, because many of us are religious, no? We have the vow of poverty. There will always be people who will say, oh, let us have a simpler life, no? And for them, simpler life means simpler food. And for some of them, in fact, simpler food means tasteless food. But probably it's just my opinion. Let us save on other things, no? But not so much, too much of poverty on food, no? Because in some cases here in Loyola House of Studies, I don't know if it is still true, but before there was a time when the food was not good. So what did some of the scholastics do? Or they eat outside. Or they eat outside in Katipunan. Or they ask somebody, their friends, to treat them out because they don't have money. So is that good for common life? It's not good, diba? So let them, and not what we're not. We don't have to be very luxurious, in this regard. But you can have simple food, simple Filipino food. Oh, can that still be debated? Having simple Filipino food of tinolang manok, sinigang, what else? Sisig. That's adobo. No, it can be anything more simple than adobo, but it can be prepared well, no? So because also our sharing at table, it also enhances our community life, diba? But of course, we also need some means of support, no? There will be benefactors who will help us, no? In terms of this aspect of our sustenance, of our food, no? So these areas of formation are all interrelated, no, as mentioned. So our goals of spiritual formation to develop a close relationship with Christ, as mentioned, to be fit for the fruitful exercise of the pastoral ministry. To be fit through our spiritual formation, we become fit for our mission. So how do we become fit? By spirituality. Well, it's so difficult to be in the pastoral mission if we ourselves do not feel that connection with the Lord. No, sometimes when I give the homily, no, of course, a priest gives homily. Sometimes I ask myself, is this really me? What I say in the homily, do I really experience that? Honestly, in some cases, there is a kind of a disconnect, no? Which only means that I need to go deeper into this relationship with the Lord, so that what I say, I can actually say this is my own experience, no? But that's not always the case. There's always something that has to be deepened, that has to be elevated in terms of our relationship with the Lord. So because with that, you feel sincere. Hindi ka nanloloko. You're not fooling people around by the homily, no? So in that sense, we are fit, no? When we are able to be sincere, that when we do service for the poor people, we're not doing this to please ourselves, to say, oh, I love the poor, but that we actually see Christ in the poor, like what Mother Teresa herself experienced, no? In that sense, Mother Teresa was very fit for the pastoral ministry with the poor that she experienced, because she, in her service, her purpose was really to serve Jesus Christ in the poor. Then to develop a sense of mission, no? Mission, for me, in a simple way, mission is always going out of ourselves. For me, that is a simple definition of mission. Try to find always opportunities to get out of ourselves. That is the way to be a missionary. No? If we're always focused on ourselves, focused on our comfort, focused on and happy what we are already presently comfortably doing, that is not missionary. Missionary is always going forth, going beyond, the limits of our persons and of our mission, of our ministry. So hopefully we ask ourselves, how can we develop that sense of mission in our seminarians and in our sisters in formation? to realize that lively faith and charity in ministry contribute to one's own personal sanctification. Oh, there you see the connection between prayer and ministry. No, that interplay between prayer and life. Okay, when we do our ministry in faith and in charity, that makes us holier in simple ways. No, that makes us holier when we devote ourselves in pastoral ministry, when parish priests give everything that they could in serving the people of God, they become holier. That experience of service should not be separated from one's experience of prayer. No, again, it is not a matter of kind of putting down prayer and spiritual life. Anyway, if I do my mission, I become holy. I do not have to pray. No, it is not that. It is intertwined, no? Prayer, contemplation, and action. Okay? To cultivate those virtues which are harmful in human relationships. Okay? To harmonize human and spiritual and supernatural values. These are the goals of formation. To love the church. Okay? That is quite important for everyone, especially for priests who will become ordained ministers of the church, to love the church. But take note, to love the church does not mean that we close our eyes to the negative things that are happening in the church. Sometimes loving the church would mean criticizing the wrong things that we see in the church. If we close our eyes for the sake of love for the church, that is not love. That is denial of realities that we see in the church. And yet when we criticize the church, it should be done in a way that is polite, in a way that is not destructive. Okay. To develop a humble and a filial charity to the Roman pontiff, to one's own bishop, and to one's brethren or brothers and sisters in friendly cooperation. Okay? So, of course, we should avoid comparing popes. The problem is sometimes, especially in recent years, people compare popes. Some are, we are for Pope Benedict. We are for Pope Francis. No, they are popes, and we should respect them. They have their own contribution. Remember, they were called to serve the church by the Holy Spirit in a particular historical context. Each pope has his own strengths and he has his own contribution. So this let's try to avoid that. Usually Pope Benedict and Pope Francis, no? But for them, we get both worlds, the best of both popes. That is what we have today, and we are quite fortunate. Of course, Pope Benedict is emeritus, but we see how his contributions for the development of the church in very difficult situations. Okay, formation is for preparation for fraternal unity in the presbyterium. Okay, for unity within the diocese, no? Of all those incardinated in the diocese, but also those who are religious members of congregations who are working in the diocese. Now, there is one question that is being asked all over. In regard to the unity of the presbyterium, because there are seminaries in the Philippines, theologies, schools of theology, major seminaries, and it depends also on the policy of the bishop. Because recently I heard from a seminarian from the Diocese of Sorsogon, because in the past years, the various dioceses of Bicol in southern Luzon, many bishops are freely send their seminarians to different schools of theology. Some go to Naga, Holy Rosary, some go to UST, some diocesan seminarians of the Bicol area go to San Jose. And I think some even go to San Carlos Seminary. But I heard from one seminarian that the policy of the bishop has changed. That all seminarians in Bicol should now go to Naga. There. So the question is that wise, or is it good, or is it not good? Is it a wise decision? In other seminaries, for example, in other dioceses, in Bulacan, in Giginto, Immaculate Conception, a college seminary, the policy there is, for theology, you should study theology there in Bulacan. If you transfer to another seminary, for example, San Jose Seminary, you will be separated now from the diocese. Because they want all their seminarians to study only there in the seminary in Immaculate Conception. And I think part of the reason that they claim is this: fraternal unity in the diocese, so that all of them will be united coming from one seminary. The same thing in Pampanga, Mater Boni Concili, Our Lady of Good Counsel Seminary. I think in general, except for very few exceptions, all their seminarians study theology there in Pampanga because they are one diocese. Is that healthy or not? Is it good? Of course, the answer is always yes and no. No, there's no one single answer. In Lucena, Father Lawrence, what's the policy? At least in the different dioceses of Quezon, you have Infanta, you have Gumaca, you have Lucena. For theology,
The bishops have practice freedom, Father. Sometimes they send seminarians. Most often they send seminarians to the Sena, but in other cases they send someone to other seminaries. They are free. It depends upon the bishop, Father.
yes. Now, regarding unity in the Presbyterium, that's the fact that, okay, you're just one example, no, Gumaca. That's the fact of the priests coming from different seminaries. Is it detrimental to unity?
Not that much. Not that I see or observe, Father. Some of our priests were graduates of San Jose or US.
UST,
Well, they were the older priests.
the older ones. But now the younger ones are all from
Saint
Lucena,
Alphonsus,
St.
Lucena.
Alphonsus, okay.
But
there
there are some who are graduates of San Jose, like Father Monabril is from San Jose.
yeah, Raylord Chito is not
Raylord.
ordained, no, but he's, yeah. Because I'm also trying to imagine, let us imagine ourselves. All the priests of this diocese come from one seminary, only from this seminary. And they undergo formation, like, because they're not big, no? For example, in one class, first year theology, 10 seminarians, second year theology, 10, third year, 10. For 4 years, 10 of them are in the classroom just in each other's arms. Is that healthy? I'm actually afraid. I get afraid if you have seminarians, no? Of course, I don't want to caricature, no? Because there are also other means for them to interact with other people in the apostolates, on the weekends, or in the parish, no? It's not as if they're just among themselves, but in the academic formation of theology, they're just among themselves, no? Yeah, sometimes there's value for seminarians to be able to encounter other people who might not actually be the same in terms of our ideas and mindsets, no? And I would say, if ever, because the fact is, many seminaries are like this in the Philippines, no? Or probably even in your own countries, in Vietnam or in Kenya, no? But if that is the situation, the formator should find ways for them to get exposed to different groups of people in whatever way. Okay? In such a way that when they get ordained priests, they have the capacity to be able to relate with different sorts of people. People who do not agree with their ideas, people who agree with them, people who are nice to them, people who are not too nice to them. Akakuko, you wanted to say something.
I think the same class from the same class. To some extent, yes, they say it's okay. but for me, I see it like a disadvantage because, for instance, in our house, we are from different 10 nationalities.
Yes.
And within the community, we have 3 schools, not 3, 4.
4 schools. LST,
LST, UST,
UST, MST,
Christ,
Christ the King for philosophy.
of philosophy. But I see sometimes very helpful because sometimes we engage ourselves in debates.
So they debate among themselves. Okay.
This debate sometimes is challenging because it makes you to read ahead and to have ideas to share during the debate. As well, there is no way I will just be seated there and let other people be challenged by me. So it gives us that motive of
Yeah, different
different views
and perspectives.
perspectives. As well, I've seen this in my diocese. In my diocese, they send their seminarians in different schools, even the one of the religious.
Uh-huh.
The bishop did that because he wanted them to learn, because he said he's a missionary. So he said, once you get ideas, when you come back for the holiday, all of you have ideas that you can bring together
Yeah.
and share and bring the diversity in our diocese. But if you keep them in one, for instance, in one school, like you have nobody else to challenge you. You are just only 10 of you. At the end of the day, you find that your mind is only fixated on what you know. Despite that, you will have the apostolate to interact with different people. What you will be sharing with them, it's what you get from this small group. But when you have diversity, and when you come together, you share ideas.
Yes.
You go to the apostolate, you are able to share your ideas and come back to the community and share. Oh, the idea you brought is very good. People are very happy. So diversity is very good.
Remember, diversity should not divide us, huh? Diversity should not divide us. The diversity should even enhance our unity. But of course, we have to be very careful then. No? Sometimes, kanya-kanyang seminary yan. Ano? Taga UST, taga San Jose, taga Lucena, St. Alfonso's, and then it takes some maturity, no, to handle this, no. We should not be so cliquish ba, and we should not always present, oh, our seminary is the best seminary, etc., etc. No, I remember, who was telling this story? I think he was just telling the story. He was just telling. I don't think I should share this, but because the person is quite influential, no, because he was telling, oh, those who studied in Rome, because in Rome, no, there the diocesan priests there in Colegio Filipino who studied there. In Colegio Filipino, they come from different universities. Oh, where are you studying? Oh, I'm studying in the Angelicum. Oh, Angelicum. Oh, how about you? Where are you studying? I'm studying moral theology. And so therefore I'm studying Alfonsianum. Oh, Alfonsianum, very good school. No? Where are you studying? Oh, I'm studying in Santa Croce, the Opus Dei. Yeah, okay. Where are you studying? In the Gregorian. Oh, the best. And now where are you studying? In Urbaniana. Urbaniana. No, it's a joke, not told by somebody. No? But take note, that is the University of Cardinal Tagle. Because that is the University of the propaganda fide. Okay, Jerry and Jugal, I think we have to cut that part in our recording. This thing, because these kinds of attitudes, that kind of attitude does not help. It will not cause unity in the Presbyterium. Okay, so let's continue, and then soon we will have a break. Still, our objective through common life in the seminary and by developing friendships with others, we are also prepared to observe celibacy and to learn to hold it in honor as a special gift of God. Now, in terms of celibacy, the matters of sexuality should be openly discussed. No, it should be openly discussed in the seminary. Okay, whether in individual conversations, but even in group conversations. That is why di ba, we have this PSI, the psycho-spiritual integration. In some formation houses, they also have even sexuality seminars, no? So that they can openly talk about matters about it's not just about sex in itself, no? It's about matters regarding how we can conduct ourselves as vowed men and women vowed in chastity. Okay, there are many means of formation in the spiritual life. Of course, we have the Holy Eucharist, the Liturgy of the Hours. All these are in Canon 246, Sacrament of Reconciliation. Again, this has to be offered to our formans and even to our sisters, whether it be in the house, in the community itself, or in a nearby parish. And the various devotions to our Blessed Mother. Especially here in the Philippines, this is part and parcel of our formation in the Philippines, our devotion to the Blessed Mother. Okay, a personal prayer and our retreats. Okay. We have also, this might surprise you. This might surprise you. In Canon 276, paragraph 2, the daily mass is actually optional for priests. We are talking about priests. Priests are earnestly invited to offer the Eucharistic sacrifice to participate in the offering. Okay, please mute yourself so there will be no noise. Please mute yourself, please. And there is obligatory liturgy of the hours for priests and for deacons. But of course, for seminarians undergoing formation, daily mass is not optional. No, it's part of our community activities in the seminary and in the community. One thing that is quite stressed in our formation is there should be a clear connection between sacred liturgy and daily life. The integration of these, the sacred liturgy and our daily life, in such a way that our daily life is influenced by our devotion to the Holy Eucharist. A formation that penetrates the nature and the sense of the liturgy, and we see in the liturgy both the spiritual and pastoral dimensions of our liturgy. Okay, let's take a break now. It's almost 3:30. Let's come back at 3:50, 10 minutes before 4 o'clock. So let's take this time for our break. Okay, let us resume our class. So I'd like to discuss with you some matters regarding formation to the permanent diaconate. The last time we were kind of thinking about or exploring about the possibility of women deacons, but for now, that is not something that is current. It is still under study by a certain commission in the Vatican. But this is something that is in our canon law, no? Formation of men to the permanent diaconate. So we have here a picture. This is from the United States. So we have here a rather a senior man serving as a deacon. He is a permanent deacon and he serves the community together with the priest here. So let us, well, I just found here a blog, no, of this deacon, Stephen Gretencourt. Let's skip that, but let's go to Canon 236, no? This is what canon law says about the permanent diaconate. So what is their formation? Young men, so there are two groups, no? There are young men who are aspiring for the permanent diaconate, but there are also, number two, men of a more mature age, no? Older men. And many of these, or a number of these more mature men they might actually be married or celibate. So let's start with the formation of young men to the permanent diaconate. They are to reside for at least 3 years in a special house unless the diocesan bishop for grave reasons decides otherwise. The standard is just 3 years living in a special house. So it's quite general. It does not say that the young man preparing for permanent diaconate should live in a seminary. No? It can be the bishop's house. No? And then there in the bishop's house, undergo formation for at least 3 years. Okay? At this year, we're talking about the number of years of formation of young men for the permanent diaconate. It says here, unless the diocesan bishop for grave reasons decide otherwise. So the bishop may send this man to the seminary itself, together with the theologians, no? And if this young man preparing for permanent diaconate is in the seminary, he should be probably studying theology, because a good deal of the service of the permanent deacons is liturgical, no? But that's not the only way that permanent deacons serve, no? Usually we see in the pictures, okay, the deacons, permanent deacons with their deacon stole, but they can also be assigned to do other kinds of work. Now, for more mature men, no, older men who might actually be celibates or married, they are to prepare for 3 years in a manner determined by the Episcopal Conference. So here, the Bishops' Conference will decide the formation program for more mature men. Okay? So for younger men, it's just up to the bishop to decide. Okay, because since they're young, they can be incorporated in the seminary with young men also. But to incorporate a more mature man in the seminary, there might be some difficulty that might happen. And that is the reason why canon law asks bishops' conferences to prepare a formation program for more mature men. Unfortunately, in the Philippines, we do not have permanent deacons, no? As an institution, we don't have more mature men who are being prepared, who might actually be married, preparing for diaconate ordination to serve as permanent deacons. What we have is close to this is he is from the Diocese of Antipolo. This man, I forgot his name, no? He was featured in GMA, Channel 7. This man was a seminarian in the 1960s here in the San Carlos Seminary in Manila. He's from Bulacan. But then eventually he left the seminary. I think he left the seminary after college, philosophy. So eventually he married and he had 3 children, I think. And then eventually at an older age, his wife passed away. So he became a widower. And then by that time, the children were already mature. They already had their own families. And this senior man wanted to become a priest. He wanted to come back to the seminary. And so he came here to LST to take some courses. And then with the intention of wanting to become ordained as a priest. But at that time, he was looking for a bishop. So he said he tried to contact the Archbishop of Manila at that time, and then Diocese of Cubao, and then he was able to contact the bishop here in Antipolo, Bishop Francis de Leon. And Bishop Francis de Leon expressed interest in taking him in, and then also for him to undergo some kind of formation, but not as a permanent deacon. So first he was ordained a deacon. But to prepare for ordination as a deacon, he took some theology courses here. I think just for 1 year or 2 years. And then eventually, he was ordained as a deacon here in Marikina. And then eventually, he was ordained as a priest. And so that his ordination was featured by, what's the name of that news anchor? Enriquez? Mike Enriquez was his classmate in the seminary or a friend of his seminary in San Carlos. Because Mike Enriquez was a seminarian for our Filipino students, no? And they knew each other. So Mike Enriquez learned about him, about his intentions. Then he became a priest. So in fact, they covered his ordination as a priest. So and then there at the ordination were his adult children at the ordination. Okay, I forgot his name. Does anyone know if among the Filipinos, what's his name? Anyone? You don't recall? But anyway, yeah. Here in the Philippines, for the diaconate, permanent, no, we don't have an approval from the Bishops' Conference. Because all that canon law requires is for the Bishops' Conference to request the Vatican to allow. But the Bishops' Conference has never asked that that we have in the Philippines permanent deacons. So the basic norms for permanent deacons is in a document in 1998. It's called Basic Norms for the Formation of Permanent Deacons, RFIDP. So there, so in canon law, it does not define specifically what is their formation. It just says 3 years. Okay, most probably the best formation program for them would be living in a seminary with a community, but taking courses which are kind of specific to their role as deacons. Not the whole year, not all theology courses that the priests take, but the person can also take other pastoral courses. Because as a deacon, fully devoted to the ministry, definitely the deacon will take care of individuals, families. So maybe a family ministry courses might be very helpful for the permanent deacons. Yes, Julie. For the diaconate? For the priesthood, so what is required is the 3 years or 4 years of theological studies. What I was talking about, yeah. So the bishop made a special exemption for him. So he did not have to study 3 or 4 years of theology. In fact, he did not complete all the courses that you took, no? So he just took the most important, the core courses for seminarians, and he did it just in, I think, less than 3 years, less than 2 years even. Yes. So the bishops would make exemptions to that general rule, but the general rule is 3 years to 4 years of the study of theology. Okay, so let's continue. Let's go to the obligations and rights of clerics. No, there's a section in canon law regarding this, and it is very clear that one obligation for clerics is celibacy. Okay, it is a special obligation for all the diocesan priests and all clerics to observe the celibacy, no? The fact of not being married. Okay. Also, this obedience to the Supreme Pontiff and to their own religious superior, which is the bishop for the diocesan clergy. Regarding celibacy, let's try to study celibacy because is it a divine law that a priest should be celibate? So that is the question, no? What is of divine law for priests is the fact that the person should be male. That is by divine law, no? It is requirement for the priesthood. However, what about celibacy? Because here, let us look at this first letter to Timothy, chapter 3, verse 2. It says here, this is in the first 100 years, first 100 years or 120 years, first of years of the church. No? A bishop must be irreproachable, married only once. Oh, so the bishop was married before, no? But only once, no? Not twice, no? The bishop is married only once. Temperate, self-controlled, decent, hospitable, able to teach. Not a drunkard, not aggressive, but gentle. Not contentious, not a lover of money. So these are the qualities of a bishop, according to the letter to Timothy. He must manage his own household well, keeping his children under control with perfect dignity. Okay? For if a man does not know how to manage his own household, how can he take care of the church of God? So here in the early church, we see that bishops could marry. How many times?
One.
Only once. So this time in the letter to Titus, chapter 1, verse 6. For this reason, I left you in Crete so that you might set right what remains to be done and appoint presbyters in every town, as I directed you on condition that a man be blameless. What are the qualities of presbyters? Married only once, with believing children, who are not accused of licentiousness or rebelliousness. So for priests and bishops, they were married only once. Now let's look at the letter of St. Paul, the first letter of St. Paul to the Corinthians, chapter 7, verses 7 to 8. Because Paul, in this case, he lived a celibate life. No? He was a celibate. Indeed, I wish everyone to be as I am, but each has a particular gift from God of one kind and one of another. Now to the unmarried and to widows, I say it is a good thing for them to remain as they are. Okay, unmarried and as widows, as I do. But if they cannot exercise self-control, they should marry, for it is better to marry than to be on fire. Okay. Now, of course, St. Paul lived in a different context. No, for them, in fact, in our recent history in our countries, sometimes this is the reason that they give why one should get married. No. Those who could not exercise self-control. But I think what we're presuming here in sexual matters, no? Instead of Instead of having sex with different people, just marry so you have sex with one person only. Of course, that is a shallow reason for getting married, no? But that was a kind of a mentality at that time as a reason for marriage. So there, for the apostles, no, remember, many of them were married. A number of them were actually married, but eventually they left their spouse to follow Christ. Like, for example, I'm sure Peter, followed Christ not with a wife, no, but as a person, a single person. Now, in the first 300 years of Christianity, there was no general law for clerics. No, the first 300 years. Now, the first 300 years of Christianity, we were still emerging. We did not have structures yet. Although we have those early letters, documents, describing that some bishops are married, probably some were not married, some presbyters were married, some probably were not. No? So, but in general, there was no clear law for clerics in the first 300 years of Christianity. Now, what happened beyond the first 300 years of Christianity? Okay, what do we see now in the documents? The ordination of widowers who had married was prohibited, forbidden. So what happened here? No, apparently, there were men who were married. Okay, there were men who were married, and then they were ordained. No, so probably they were married and then they got ordained. Now, first they were married, then they were ordained, like permanent deacons. No, many permanent deacons, the older ones, they're married already, active in the parish, and they decided to be ordained as deacons. So probably it's a similar situation. But eventually the wife died. The wife died. But some of them remarried. But they were already deacons. That was forbidden. So once the wife of the married deacon dies, that person cannot marry anymore a second time. No? Why? Because it is prohibited for one to be ordained, one as a widower, no, and as one who remarries. So that was forbidden at that time. Now, in the 4th century, around the 300s, the end of 300s, men were forbidden to contract marriage after ordination. So the marriage bond is an impediment to become ordained as a priest. Okay? One cannot be ordained as a priest if one has a bond of marriage. So it became a rule already, no? So gradually, here we see gradually canon law is being developed. Now, in this early council of the church, Council of Elvira, that happened in 305 to 308, here in Canon 33, the law of continence or the law of celibacy was enacted for the clergy of Spain. Very early on, no? Celibacy was now required in their Canon 33. So, I wonder what might have been the reasons why celibacy was imposed, no? If there were, the fact that it was imposed, meaning there were already people, priests who were married, no, and had families. So probably there might have been some problems and difficulties in that context, with priests having their wife and having their children. So therefore, it was prohibited at that time. Now, eventually, there were other councils, the Council of Rome, no? Here, in this case, under Pope Siricius, the Council of Carthage, very early, year 401, and then the Council of Toledo, again, this is in Spain, early, around 499, about the year 500, that's the 6th century. Continence for all bishops, priests, and deacons were imposed by that time. No, it was by a council, no, by way of a decision of a council that was imposed. Now, in 458, Pope Leo the Great, for him, he also imposed continence or celibacy for subdeacons. Now, there are no more subdeacons now, no? All we have are the ordination to the diaconate, and the ordination to the priesthood. Before there were subdeacons. Among the subdeacons of before were the ministry, now we know them as acolytate and lectorate. And that was before a subdiaconate, no? But even then, not just for deacons and priests, but Pope Leo the Great also imposed celibacy on subdeacons. And then from around the 400s, it was a general obligation in the West, no? In Europe, basically that's where Christianity was, no? In the West. Then let's proceed. Now, by the 10th and the 11th centuries, by the 900s, and the year 1000 and onwards, there was general corruption of clerical life. No? I wonder what that corruption, surely it involves money, corruption in money, but also probably also a loose way of life. No? And I could imagine, the fact that there is a law before does not mean that it's always imposed. No? It does not mean that it was always followed. Probably at that time, the law of celibacy was not also followed. No? It was very early on in the history of the church. So probably I could imagine the general corruption would also involve sexual matters regarding the clergy. So Pope Gregory VII in 1020, who ruled from 1020 to 1085, required celibacy as an essential objective for his reform. That was his way to reform the church, to reimpose and make sure that celibacy is followed by all the clergy, by the diocesan clergy, not the religious. No? And in the Synod of Rome in 1074, under the same Pope Gregory VII, he forbade married men to be ordained. Okay? So again, it's part of his reform to enforce celibacy in the church. Eventually, the Lateran Council, the First Lateran Council, 1139, in Canon number 7, now the council involved the laity. And they decreed that the lay women and laymen are forbidden to receive the sacraments from the married clergy. Now, again, if there's a prohibition like that, there were married clergy. The law of celibacy was not being followed. So, lay people, don't receive communion from the married priests. And then again, in this is 1135. Sorry, this is 1139, Lateran 1. Again, in Canon 7, there was a prohibition for cohabitation with a concubine or a wife for priests. No, priests were forbidden to cohabitate, of course, with a concubine or a wife. No? So that is forbidden. The fact that marriage among the clergy is forbidden, so if they do this, it will be concubinage. Now, in the Council of Pisa, 1135, established for the first time the nullity of matrimony entered into by clerics or monks. No? So even monks at the time were entering into marriage. Their marriage is null if they enter into the sacrament. Now what happened later? So we're around this time of 1135, 1139. At the Council of Trent. No? This was in response to the Reformation, the Protestant Reformation of Martin Luther in 1545 to 1563. The council confirmed the laws earlier and established censures including excommunication for priests to get married. So there was that general prohibition already by this time. Now, as you know, we belong to the Latin Church. No, we belong to the Roman Latin Rite. No, but also in the Catholic Church there are Oriental Catholics. No, they belong to one church under the Pope, but they observe the Eastern Rite. Now, in the early church, there was also the Eastern Church, there was a synod in Trullo early on, 692. They required absolute continence even for bishops at that time in 692. They prohibited some deacons, and presbyters to contract marriage after ordination. So priests cannot get married. So that's in the Eastern Church. However, in the Eastern Church, they permitted one to have a wife if he is married before ordination. Okay? If they were previously married, then that person can be ordained if he were married before, like the present rule on permanent deacons. Okay, so however, just a clause here, because in India and in Syria, they also have the Eastern Catholic Church, but they do not follow that there. Okay, so that's the law of celibacy in the Catholic Church. Yeah, well, we don't know what will happen in the future. But I think this time, definitely it is not under discussion for priests to get married. They say because of the sexual abuse, priests should get married, but I don't see the connection between the sexual abuse and marriage, the marriage of clerics. No? But for us religious, because we have vows also, so definitely the marriage is out of the question for religious clergy because of our vows. Okay. So are there questions for now? So let's proceed. No, here let's skip the celibacy. Let's look at the obligation of clerics for the simplicity of life in 282. According to 282, paragraph 2, the goods which they receive on the occasion of the exercise of an ecclesiastical office, and which are over and above what is necessary for their worthy upkeep and the fulfillment of all the duties of their state, they may well wish to use for the good of the church and for charitable works. No? This is not really a strict rule. No, it is, as we see here, they may well wish to use for the good of the church. If they receive financial gifts or gifts in kind, which they actually don't need, for example, then it is just an exhortation to live a simple life. No? But of course, they can keep all of these because, the diocesan clerics, they don't have the vow of poverty. They have all the right, of course, to keep and to have a good deal of savings also. It belongs to their right to have a vehicle, to have a car. No? But of course, we have to have the prudent use, the prudent use of our finances, and to make the wise choices. Should I buy the most expensive car or a good car, strong enough, presentable enough for my use in the apostolate? Okay? But here the exhortation of canon law is the simplicity of one's life. Okay, this is something for our reflection. PO means Presbyterorum Ordinis. This is the document of Vatican II on the life and the ministry of priests. Number 17. What does Vatican II say about this? Priests are not to seek ecclesiastical office or the benefits of it for the increase of their own family wealth. Priests and also bishops should avoid everything which in any way could turn the poor away. So that's the reason why canon law tries to enjoin priests to have a simple lifestyle, so that the poor will not be turned away by their state and their way of life. Okay, the poor should be will be free to approach them. No, Now, it does not mean the priest should live a destitute life. Not really that, no? But a life that is not luxurious, so that everybody can still come to the priest for their services. Now, PO, Presbyterorum Ordinis continues, let priests set aside every appearance of vanity in their possessions. Let them arrange their homes so that they might not appear unapproachable to anyone, lest anyone, even the most humble, fear to visit them. So the concern of Vatican II is the accessibility of priests, no, to people, especially the poor. One right, no, this is a right of the clergy, is remuneration and social assistance. Yeah. Now, for us religious, that is also part of our life, no? As religious, we can say that the fact that we belong to a congregation, we belong to a family, in quotation marks, we have the right to sustenance by our religious order, no? Sometimes I feel sad because I know that there are some new foundations, no? New groups of religious congregations, you might know. Newly established, they're not financially stable. I'm sad when I see their seminarians, they have to fend for their own. No? They have to pay for their own tuition when the tuition should be paid by our religious congregations, diba? Do you pay your own tuition or your congregation? Do you have to work as a laborer to be able to pay for your tuition? No, diba? Because it is the obligation of our congregation to take care of us. First of all, they invited us to come to them, no? And now that we are there with them, we do service, we are under formation, soon to be priests. So it's their obligation to take care of you. Now there are some I know that there was this seminarian, he had to do labor construction work. No, it's a bit sad, no? Okay, it is the right, this right to your remuneration and social assistance is in Canon 281. In the case of the Clerics, no, by virtue of their incardination in the diocese, no, this should be the obligation of the bishop. And also the faithful, the people should support their priests also. Because in the first place, the priests serve the diocese, serve the needs of the diocese and of the people. So therefore, such a right is a part of distributive justice also, no? So I don't know how much is the support in different dioceses of the Philippines. I hope in Gumaca you have support, no, from your diocese. Okay, good. Now, in canon law 1274, paragraph 1, it talks about the special fund. What is that special fund that is in canon law? It says, in every diocese, there is to be a special fund which collects offerings and temporal goods for the purpose of providing, in accordance with 281, the sustenance for priests, for the support of the clergy who serve the diocese, unless they are otherwise catered for. So here we have as part of the obligation of the diocese and the right of secular clerics for sustenance from the diocese. Now, this is an exhortation in canon law, in canon 222, paragraph 1, for the parishioners to support their priests. Okay? Sometimes there have some problems that have arisen because a number of parishes are run by religious, no? And the religious have their source of finance, no? In some cases, some religious parish priests, they fail to encourage their parishioners to support the parish financially. Why? Because anyway, they have sources from somewhere, from their congregation, They're able to have support for themselves. But the problem arises sometimes when the religious parish is turned over to the secular clergy. No, because the secular clergy, they're alone. No, they do not belong to a religious congregation. They're supported surely by the diocese, but in many cases, the support financially for the priest might not be sufficient. So it is our obligation as religious parish priests, if you have in our congregations, to train our parishioners to support their priests. Because we will not be in the parish for a long time. Eventually, that is turned over to the diocesan clergy. So let us just read the canon 222, paragraph 1. Christ's faithful have the obligation to provide for the needs of the church, so that the church has available to it those things which are necessary, first, for divine worship, to be able to celebrate the sacraments in the parishes, that needs financial support from the people of God. Support for apostolic and charitable work. To provide catechism to children and to teenagers and to adults, that needs finances. So the people of God should support the parish. And for the worthy support of its ministers. Yeah, so that's an important provision in the canon law. Now, a part of the obligations and the duties of parish priests is this, and the secular clergy, but also religious, prohibition against engagement in commerce or trade in 286. Let's look at this, because here there might be a good deal of some. The situation in each country is not the same. No, there might be situations when we need the church or the parish needs to raise funds. No, clerics are forbidden to practice commerce or trade, either personally or through another, for their own or another's benefit, except with the permission of the local ecclesiastical authority. In what way might engagement in commerce be allowed? Okay, if it is, for example, for their own apostolate. Okay, the prohibition here seems to be for their own benefit or for another's benefit. I would like to read that as for the benefit of relatives. No? If commerce or trade is done to raise funds for the apostolate, then it can be allowed. Okay? Here we have except with the permission of the ecclesiastical authority. As long as the bishop is informed about it and he has given permission, then the practice of commerce or trade may be allowed. Of course, this is a certain fact. This is the only way for a number of parishes to survive. No, in your own experience, would you know what kind of economic activities are done in the parishes, or even in non-parish, to be able to raise funds for the mission? Anyone? In your experience, Father Lawrence, what are these activities that are done? For example, I know that some of the women, they produce some products made from native materials, and with these products, they're able to sell the products, no? And then with kind of an income, they're able to support the parish or other activities. Father Lawrence, anything that you know?
Father, we have the social action program, which is oriented towards livelihood programs, helping
Livelihood programs, yes.
like livestocks. We have bakery, and another is the candles.
Okay, yeah, candles, yes.
These are trainings which are given to the people, and then part and parcel of it, the income is also given to the diocese to support other programs.
Yes.
Another way is fundraising, of course. We have a lot of fundraising,
And then
especially
direct fundraising.
for constructions.
Mhm. What about the sisters? I know some sisters are quite engaging in all these commerce. What kind of activities do you do? Of course, we know the activities of the Daughters of St. Paul. No, we already know that. What about others? Many sisters are quite creative here in this regard for the apostolate.
Retreat house, Father.
Okay, yes,
And
retreat
then
houses.
boarding house.
Okay, boarding houses. Okay. What about the Augustinians, OSA? What kind of commercial activities are done for the sake of the apostolate, not for our own enrichment, of course?
Same, Father, we have retreat houses, and some sisters are conducting recollections and retreats for the mission, and of course, from our school apostolate.
Okay. And of course, very common are schools also, no? Schools. Kakuku, you have others?
Especially where we have objects. In Kenya, one of the parish, we have tea factory and tea plantation. That's generates income for the parish to.
It's a parish land that's used.
Yes.
Wow. It's a tea plantation.
Yes, but the first place we do, but
Wow. Yeah.
that one helps that parish.
Mhm.
When the other parish, we have a bread for the Catholic Women Association.
Mhm.
We help expansion.
Yes. Okay, I don't know if you watched the film, the old film, The Mission, about the mission of the Jesuits in Paraguay. There, the reductions, no, the way they kind of or Christianize the natives of Latin America, especially in Paraguay. They Christianize them, they organize their community. Of course, they built a church, but they also organized a whole economic activity within the territory of the parish. So they had harvest of bananas, they have plantations, all of these things. In fact, those reductions or those kind of parishes became very profitable. And many of the civil authorities they wanted to take over all the profits, no, and of those reductions. So yes. Now the question is, what is not allowed? No, what is not allowed is for individual priests, no, individual priests, uh, um, to engage in commerce or business for their own. As I heard,
Father,
yes.
Angel has a message in the chat box.
Okay, that there are extracurricular activities, no, of some priests, no. Yeah, it's a difficult thing. On the one hand, the clergy have no vow of poverty, no. Um, um, but still, they need the financial support for themselves, no. So yeah, so it's a difficult situation. As I mentioned, in each country there are different situations. In Europe or in America, the priests do not have to do that, not to have their own livelihood, a kind of a source of income, because they are well provided by their diocese, no? Or in Australia now, there are a lot of number of Filipino priests, who are and even seminarians who go to Australia and to New Zealand. There they are well provided. They are like, in quotation marks, employees of the diocese. They have a standard, stable source of income. So there they don't have to do that. But in other poor places like ours, in many places in the provinces, some of the priests would have to, do some business for their own, no, even if it's not for the benefit of the parish. So in that situation, yeah, it's a kind of a tension that we have here in our country. Would I tell a priest? Would I prohibit a priest from doing that? All I can say is canon law enjoins the priest to a simpler lifestyle. No, but a simpler lifestyle, it means while it can be simple, but the priests have to prepare also for their retirement. No? They have to, in many cases, a number of priests also support their parents, no? Or their brothers and sisters financially, or even their nephews and nieces. No? So in that case, I would be, I would try to understand the situation. As long as it does not come to a situation of luxury already. Okay? Okay, let's see again. What are, according to the commentary of the Canon Law Society of America, let us see the activities that are covered by the prohibition. No? Trading, strictly so-called, buying goods with the intention of selling them unchanged for profit. No? Parang bibili ka sa SM, tapos, and then you sell everything that you bought at a higher price. I think it's not a good thing to do. No? Industrial business, buying materials with the intention of selling them later at a profit after they have been transformed by one's own labor and that of hired employees. Again, this is what I'm presenting to you is a different context. It is American context based on the Canon Law Society of America. And it is an interpretation of law based on their own context. I could see a number of parishes probably doing this also, trying to buy some raw materials, transforming them, making them beautiful, like decorations for houses, and sell them for the benefit of the parish. Here, I'm not quite familiar with the stocks, stock trading. Here, according to the commentary, this is prohibited. Speculation. The purchase of stocks and bonds carried on with the hope that the item purchased will quickly increase in value so that it can be resold for a profit. The stock exchange, trading in stocks. No? Yeah. Does anyone do this? Anyone? Sister Lawrence, Father Lawrence, do you do stock trading?
I don't do that, Father, but I know some who do.
You know, so-
Yes, po.
yeah. Again, as I mentioned, again, the context is important. The context when our people have to labor hard to be able to live a decent life and supporting other people, this prohibition can be debatable. No? No, but on the other hand, what are the permissible commercial activities? Domestic business, hog racing, maybe for profit, convenience operations, canteens, school supplies. No, we don't have an RVM sister here, but they have a whole system of canteens because they have so many schools. No, in the Philippines. Investment, the purchase of stocks and bonds with the intention of receiving periodic income. I guess some big congregations are into this. I'm sure our congregation is also into this investments. Again, why do we do that? Because we have a lot of expenses for our apostolate, for our mission, just to form seminarians, from the novitiate on. It requires a lot of finances needed, no. So non-clerical members of secular institutes and societies of apostolic life and diocesan permanent deacons are exempted from these prohibitions. So they can freely engage in commerce. Okay, let's end here because it's already 4:40. We'll have our last class next week. That's the last class. Our final class on Tuesday. Okay? Will you still be here, the seminarians? Or you will be on vacation already? Or do you have final exams? Okay, yeah. You're going on retreats, no? How about you guys? You still be around? Okay, let me see, no? Because we have just a few more matters to cover. Okay, would you be okay if I record myself the class and then upload it on Canvas? It's all in your Canvas. As you might have noticed, when you open your Canvas and you click on the recordings, you are directed to YouTube, no? my YouTube channel. So, okay, let's just do that. So I will just record our last class for your viewing. Okay, but you have to make sure that you will view it. Baka mamaya record ako ng record, but you will not watch the final lecture. Okay? Do you promise to watch it? It may not be on the day itself of our class next week, but if you can watch it as soon as possible. Because if you delay it, then you might forget watching. But that is the final part of our course, the final lecture actually. Yes, Kapuku?
Can you upload the PowerPoints?
Oh, yes, I will. I will upload the PowerPoints in our Canvas. Yes. Yeah, it's just that I missed uploading the past lectures that we had. Now for your reflection paper, so you have until the end of next week, no? End of next week to submit your final reflection paper. So what's the date on Saturday next week? 19, May 19. Yeah, you can still submit your reflection papers. I know it's very easy, it's just reflection. No? But what I'm looking for in your reflection papers are your own reflections, no? Don't just repeat what was discussed in the classroom, no? Because we already know that, no? But your own reflections about how some of our classes might be relevant to your own work or your own mission as a sister, as a priest, or as a formator. So the more, the personal reflections. You don't have to share your secrets. No, just your how the canon law actually affects and helps you, for example, in your own mission as formators or formators to be. Okay, for now, I think only 2 have submitted their reflection papers. We still have time, a lot of time actually. Okay, yes? Yes, somebody have submitted already their paper. Okay, so thank you so much. So hopefully you had a good semester. Some were enrolled in more than one course. Some were just in one course. So I hope, as I mentioned before, that you will finish all the courses of the diploma in this diploma program, so that you will really experience the complete all the requirements for having this diploma, which hopefully are very useful for you. So one thing to look forward to in the first semester is the course on that's anthropology of the Christian vocation with Father G. Discernment and spiritual direction. Yes. And safeguarding of minors also. That is quite important. Yes, with Dr. Gabi Diliaco. Okay, let's close our class with a prayer. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Father, we thank you for these months of the study of canon law that is relevant to our life as religious and diocesan priests. We ask you to continually guide us in our endeavor to prepare ourselves well for our mission as formators. We ask you to transform our hearts every day so that we may be effective ministers of your love and guidance to people we serve, young people. These might be men and women seeking out a vocation of service in the church, in our religious congregations, and in our dioceses. We ask the guidance always of our Blessed Mother. Like our Blessed Mother, we ask that we always open our hearts to generous service of God in our ministry in the church. So let's call on our Blessed Mother to guide us in all our endeavors. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with you. Blessed are you among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. So thank you so much. We'd like to congratulate. Who will graduate among you? Sister Ophelia will graduate, I think. Sister Chuk so will graduate on May 24. Did I forget anyone? And some of you will graduate next year. No? Gradually as you take the courses until you finish. Okay, bye-bye. Thank you. See you.
Thank you so much, Father.
I'll email you about the lecture, huh? Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.